Hello and welcome to Camnet Television Main News. My name is Jeffrey Ziambo. Our top stories tonight: law enforcement agencies raid LUSAKA'S CHIBOLYA compound. Stakeholders charge that councils are incapable of managing CDF resources. The Teaching Service Commission warns indisciplined, politically inclined teachers. In international news, DR Congo massacre survivors eke out a living in the IDP camp. And in sports news, Morocco beat Portugal to progress to the World Cup semi-finals.
In our quest to save nations and develop Africa, Savenda is investing in the agriculture sector so as to produce supply for both local and international markets, housing over 12,000 pullets that are nurtured and fed with our locally made stock feed that comes from our own locally grown maize and soya beans, all processed from our recently installed milling and mixing plant. Our over 95,000 layers have an output capacity of over 1,500 trays of fresh eggs per day that are carefully selected and packaged for all the leading stores and supermarkets nationwide. Our greenhouses are fitted with the latest irrigation system, and the seedlings are nurtured to ensure only healthy plants reach the fields. With our deliberate planting schedule, we are better placed to supply constantly without interruption, thus reliable. Savenda Farms is also changing lives of its dedicated workforce drawn from the local community and beyond. So the next time you think fresh and green, think Savenda Farms.
Good news, good news. The rains have started. You need to plan your future. Generational wealth is the way to go. Has grafted avocado plants fruiting within 2 to 3 years for sale at only 90 kwacha each, and ordinary avocados at only 45 kwacha each. Contact us on 0979 753010 or 0962 965 883. We are open from 8 hours to 17 hours, Monday to Friday, at Healing Word Ministries International in Ibex Hill, opposite Hilltop Hospital.
Hello again, another news in detail. The Zambia police in Lusaka have apprehended 139 people, among them 5 women, for various offenses in a joint operation conducted in CHIBOLYA compound Saturday morning. Police Deputy Spokesperson Danny Mwale says among the 139 suspects, 12 were apprehended for immigration-related offenses and are suspected illegal immigrants from Burundi, DR Congo, Tanzania, Kenya, Malawi, and Zimbabwe. Mr. Mwale also says 25 suspects were apprehended for drug-related offenses in which various quantities of cannabis, some of it believed to be grown locally, heroin, diazepam, and various medical products were seized. The operation was dubbed Maruda and was conducted between 01 and 06 hours, working together with the Drug Enforcement Commission, Department of Immigration, and the Zambia Revenue Authority. More in this report.
An operation dubbed Maruda, conducted in a joint operation with the Zambia Police, Drug Enforcement Commission, Department of Immigration, and the Zambia Revenue Authority in Lusaka's CHIBOLYA compound in the early hours of Saturday, has resulted in the arrest of 139 people, among them 5 women, for various offenses. Among the 139 suspects, 12 were apprehended for immigration-related offenses and about 25 suspects were apprehended for drug-related offenses in which various quantities of cannabis were discovered. Police Deputy Spokesperson Danny Mwale Saturday morning displayed the seized items at Imboila Stadium in Lusaka, among them cannabis, 2 motor vehicles loaded with various offensive weapons, breaking instruments and a police uniform, as well as household goods such as television set, bicycles and gensets all suspected to have been stolen.
139 people, among them 5 women, were apprehended for various offenses. 12 were apprehended for immigration-related offenses, while over 20 were picked for drug-related offenses. 2 motor vehicles loaded with offensive weapons, including a police uniform, were also recovered in CHIBOLYA compound.
Mr. Mwale also says all the suspects are in police custody and has sent a strong warning to would-be offenders that police will not relent in ensuring that law and order is restored in the country.
All the 39 suspects are in police custody, are waiting to be formally charged. Members of the public should know that this operation is ongoing. Like we indicated before, we'll make sure that we work to make sure that we clean the communities of criminal elements. We are appealing to members of the public to cooperate with us as we are conducting this operation, especially this festive period that we are in.
Following the announcement made by Home Affairs Minister Jack Mwimbo that police will begin to fish out criminal elements in communities, many items have so far been recovered, while many more are yet to be recovered. And the Immigration Department says it will give an opportunity to those who have been arrested for illegal entry to produce legal documents to ensure that only those without proper documentations are arrested.
We are Tanzanians. We have 3 Congolese, 3 Burundians, 1 Kenyan, 1 Malawian and 1 Burundian. And as immigration, we have done our screening here at Edwin Imboila Stadium. And I need to state this important fact that we have given an opportunity to each and every one of these suspects that we apprehended to furnish us with documents to ensure that we only apprehend and detain only those who are in the country illegally. So,
the perspective of the Drug Enforcement Commission, I would wish to state that in this operation, over 25 individuals have been picked for drug-related offenses, and various quantities of heroin, of cannabis and controlled drugs have been seized.
Prudence Chota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Chief Mpuka of the Chikunda people in Luangwa district of Lusaka province has assured the people in his chiefdom that mining activities going on in his chiefdom are a great step towards developing the area. In an interview with Camnet News, the traditional leader notes that Luangwa has no industries, which has put the residents at a vulnerable economic position. He says the mining activities under Zambezi Mining have already employed some youths who longed for jobs and hoping the mine will employ more once it's fully operational. Chief Mpuka also notes that climate change in the area has also contributed to poverty levels in the area because of agriculture is not a thriving sector there, making the mining activities one of the most lucrative sectors in the area, hence endorsing it fully.
The mines, I think we are making progress. The government has blessed us, that it has given us, it has carried on and said, no, go ahead. The reasons, you know, you have been in Luangwa several times. There's no other industry apart from ZESCO, and the ZESCO in Luangwa cannot employ a lot of people. So the mines will employ a lot of people already. They have cleared this road near the first road, this one which goes into the hills. Now, those were a few people who were needed, but I think it has given some employment to some people, and I think also the line power, ZESCO power to the mine, which is needed, it is being prepared and they are doing so. So there are some young men who have been employed. So I think for time being we are doing well in the mines, but mass employment is coming. Mass employment is coming.
To mark the end of the 16 days of gender activism, non-state actors have observed that ending gender-based violence is not an easy undertaking, but with corrective efforts, it can be significantly reduced. 10th November is Human Rights Day and marks the end of the 16 days of gender activism. Civil Society for Poverty Reduction, CSPR Executive Director Faidesi Temba says our organization will proactively engage a program of action to combat GBV further, urging women to break the silence by reporting GBV. She made the remarks during the commemoration of International Human Rights Day in Chawama constituency. And speaking on behalf of Diakonia Sweden Zambia Country Office, Edward Goma says it is the duty of everyone to stand against rights suppression. Meanwhile, Swedish ambassador to Zambia, Johan Hallenborg, says violence against women is also a violation of human rights and more still needs to be done to address the vice. The theme for this year's Human Rights Day is dignity, freedom, and justice for all.
For you and me, because when we understand the value of our human rights, we are going to implement and actualize this day. I know we talk about 16 days of gender activism. As CSPR, we are talking about 365 days action of reducing gender-based violence in our country, in our constituencies, but most importantly in our homes. The theme this year talks about uniting activism to end. So this fight is very evident that we cannot end it alone as CSPR. I cannot end it alone as a woman. The embassy cannot end it alone. They need partners, and we are the partners, all of us in this room.
And so we need to support each other, that is all the peoples of the world, all genders and ages, in claiming our rights, power, and resources. With support from the Embassy of Sweden and CIDA, we are currently working and supporting over 15 local civil society organizations in Zambia, among them our partners at CSPR, who have brought us here.
Violations against women, gender-based violence, is also a violation of human rights, of course, and much more needs to be done. In my country, Sweden, it's a big problem. I am sure in Zambia it's a big problem too. And we need to do much, much more to stop violence against women. One very important aspect of this work to stop violence against women is to engage men.
It also encourages all Zambians to unite and look out for their families, friends and colleagues who may be experiencing gender-based violence by ensuring that they seek qualified services.
Alliance for Community Action Project Manager Jimmy Maliseni has given government a 4 out of 10 in the implementation of the Constituency Development Fund CDF. In an interview with Camnet TV, Mr. Maliseni notes that apart from the guidelines of accessing CDF, the councils equally have no capacity to handle such sums of money, especially if they have to carry over the resources from one financial year to another. He notes that the revelation by the government that the refunds for the 2022, which were not used, will be brought forward and added to the 2023 national budget allocation is a bad financial decision. Meanwhile, Mr. Maliseni has advised the members of parliament to avoid influencing projects in their constituencies. He says constituencies risks having developmental projects that don't represent them but the member of parliament. Government increased the Constituency Development Fund CDF in 2022 from 1.6 million kwacha to 25.7 million kwacha and further increased it in 2023. The funds are being spearheaded by the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development.
We need to align the funding mechanisms, or should I say the funding disbursement timelines, together with the procurement timelines. So what we have observed is that there is a disconnection between the time the money is released and the period that it takes for the processes of project identification, prioritization, as well as finalization. The ultimate result of that is we are sitting in a situation where projects have been approved, but funds have not been released. But also we find that in between there is a challenge of procurement. So there is procurement still going on when the quota has run away. So we need to revisit the mechanism of quarterly funding disbursements because they're not effective. As many will be aware, right now 2022 is finished, but some quarters of 2022 have not yet been funded. And so the minister did indicate, I remember, that people will not take money back to the treasury. They'll be allowed to keep that money or retain that money and use it next year, which is not best finance practice, because you have oversight bodies like the Office of the Auditor General who would want to come and look at what happened to the resources that were dispersed this year. Comes out and says students and other young people in my constituency want a deep tank, or they want a community hall, or they want a resource center, and they create artists' impressions and post those projects on their Facebook pages or social media handles. What that does is it creates a belief among the citizens that this is what everybody in the constituency is looking forward to. And so they are cleverly but indirectly, and which is unfair, influencing the selection of projects at the grassroots level. So ultimately we are going to have projects that resemble the Member of Parliament rather than the citizens, or members of Parliament influencing identification of projects and prioritization of the same, which is something that the law is trying to run away from. But then when that happens, we are going back into that cycle. In terms of this.
Meanwhile, Nkana constituency, independent Member of Parliament Binwe Mpundu has alleged that Kitwe Municipal Council does not have the capacity to handle the increased Constituency Development Fund (CDF). In an interview, Mr. Mpundu tells Camnet TV that Kitwe has 4 constituencies, which means the local authority is receiving over 100 million kwacha to cater for 4 constituencies. He says the implementation of CDF is only easy for districts with 1 constituency, adding that there is a need for the government to first build capacity for constituencies so that each constituency has its own implementing unit within itself, as opposed to waiting on 1 local authority. More in this report.
The increased allocation to Constituency Development Fund CDF from 1.6 million kwacha to 25.7 million kwacha under the United Party for National Development has been commended by many stakeholders, while its implementation still remains a challenge. Nkana, independent Member of Parliament Binwe Mpundu, says inasmuch as government has decided to confer the responsibility of handling CDF to local authorities, many of these local authorities have no capacity to handle CDF. He says districts such as Kitwe on the Copper Belt have about 4 constituencies and has wondered how 1 local authority will handle over 1 million kwacha allocated to the 4 constituencies.
The biggest problem I've noted coming from a district where there are 5 constituencies is that the certain districts do not have the capacity, because you know that implementation of CDF is solely being done by the local authority. Now, when it is much easier to implement the activities of CDF in a district that has got 1 constituency, but in district that has got more than 1, in case of Kitwe, which has got 5 constituencies, I can say here clearly that the local authorities do not have the capacity to be able to handle the increased allocation.
Mr. Mpundu, however, says what government needed to have done is to first build capacity for constituencies so that each constituency can have its own implementing unit within itself, as opposed to waiting on 1 local authority.
Is why some of us have been calling for building capacity even under the office of the MP, whereas it is easy in that district where there's 1 constituency, 1 council, we need to do a pilot project where we build capacity for constituencies so that 1 constituency has got an implementing unit within itself. So the uptake has been very pathetic, but the decision was correct.
Meanwhile, the lawmaker says the people of Kitwe have not fully benefited from the Black Mountain, which is largely owned by foreigners despite being a dump site meant to benefit the local people.
I think the case in point is how the Black Mountain was handled. You know that the Black Mountain, has not benefited, particularly the people of Kitwe, who should have been the first to benefit from that resource. Yes, there could be a little benefit, but we could have done more. So going forward, I think that Zambia must reposition itself in ensuring that Zambians get to be considered first.
Prudence Chota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
The Teaching Service Commission Chairperson Daphne Chimuka has warned civil servants to disengage themselves from politics or resign if they fail to manage the temptation. Speaking at the 6th Quadrennial Conference for the Zambia National Teachers Union, Ms. Chimuka says teachers who forget their primary role are a danger to the teaching fraternity and the learners who depend on them. She says the Commission will not hesitate to relieve anyone who will be found wanting. The meeting will see the union usher in a new leadership, which is hoped will spur stability in the union. And Minister of Labour and Social Security, Brenda Tambatamba, in a speech read for her by Director Planning Moffat Billy, says the meeting should be used to social dialogue and broaden the spirit of consultation between government and labour unions. She says the platform will also be used to reflect on the union's achievements. More in this report.
Teachers are without a doubt part of everyone's growth, making them an important part of development at various stages. Teachers are therefore leaders by default who lead by example. Speaking at the Zambia National Teachers Union meeting in Lusaka, the Teaching Service Commission Chairperson Daphne Chimuka has urged the union to organize its house and remember its role in the education sector. She says the government is resolute to make Zambia a prosperous middle-income country by the year 2030 and that the teachers have a role to play.
Indiscipline also affects learners' academic achievement. It affects their work performance, and it also affects the way the school runs. Let me stress that the Commission will not hesitate to discipline not only the erring teacher, but any responsible officer who fails to report and properly process cases of such indiscipline. We went to the Commission in January this year. We are a fairly new Commission. And we found we are dealing with cases that happened in 2017. Why is that? There are people that have absconded from 2017 and they are still on payroll. They are not in school. They are not offering a service. They have been away from 2017. Where is the problem? Leadership is important.
In speaking at the same meeting, Zambia Congress of Trade Unions Deputy Secretary General Joy Wene reminded the participants at the meeting to ensure that they revive the spirit of solidarity in the trade unions and recruit more members.
Zanut is a sleeping giant. Those golden glory days when Zanut was a mighty Zanut. We need to claim those days. We have to say the way it is. We don't fear. I'll say it. I know it is. I'll say it. Viva Zanut, viva! Yes. I know. I might be doing it at owner's risk.
Where we are coming to say that is what is giving life and relevance to education. We cannot be proud educators where we offload people on the streets after they've attained 4 years of education in universities. Resources have gone there and yet they remain unemployed. I think the recruitment of the 30,000 teachers that we have seen as a reality is worth commendable for the government.
Meanwhile, Director Planning, Ministry of Labour and Social Security, Moffat Billy, says the unions should focus on stability which will result into growth. He says it is a fact that the trade unions play an important role in the labour market and resonates well with government's agenda of creating decent jobs.
It is an acknowledged fact that trade unions play an essential role in maintaining industrial harmony on the labour market. This in turn contributes to the greater productivity of our country. Therefore, we need to create a conducive environment that fosters decent work in order for the workforce to realize full potential. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me hasten to point out that the transformation agenda that the new Dawn government has embarked on inter alia makes the creation of decent jobs in the economy a top priority. This government has placed a high premium on the creation of decent jobs in the economy. For instance, never in the history of this country have 45,772 public service workers been recruited in a single year.
Sharon Kalimbola, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Mwansabombwe, Member of Parliament Kabaso Kampampi, has urged the United Party for National Development, UPND, to stop misleading people by alleging that they will demolish houses in Forest 27. Addressing the media in Lusaka Friday, Mr. Kampampi says the judgment passed by the courts that the degazetting of Forest 27 by President Edgar Lungu is final and cannot be reversed. He says the responsibility of a government is to protect the interests of the Zambian people, adding that many Chingola residents had their houses demolished simply because the government wanted to impress foreigners at the expense of its own people. He says the people who have built on Forest 27 are Zambians and that their interests should be protected instead of intimidating them.
Say this thing has been taken to the High Court, it's been taken to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has ruled to say they cannot reverse what was done by the former head of state. So, colleagues, let us try now to be differentiating on messages we have been given by this government. If you look at other areas like what happened in Chingola, houses of decent people were demolished just because they wanted to please someone else. But this is a government which can protect the interest of the Zambian people. You would rather protect the interest of the Zambian people than protecting the interest of an investor. Because at the end of the day, you were voted by the Zambian people. So I would like to urge the media even to find out more about what is happening in the Ministry of Lands, because this has vindicated the Patriotic Front to say actually what was done was the correct thing. People have acquired plots in Forest 27, and these are Zambians who've got plots in there. So to the media once again, it's you only who can help to disseminate information and let the Zambian people know who is telling the truth and who stands with the people of Zambia.
This is Camnet Television Main News. We'll take our break. We'll be back with more news after the break.
From time immemorial, we have had different types of lighting options, from those that can burn down our investments in minutes to those that dig holes in our pockets due to constant replacement and huge consumption of our ZESCO units. Savenda Electric introduces the new and advanced electric bulb with cutting-edge technology of LED that has low power consumption, gives out bright white light, and lasts up to 25,000 hours. Savenda Electric manufactures all types of LED light, like plastic LED fluorescent tubes, down lights, ceiling lights, outdoor fittings, and solar street lights made to customer specifications. Let's live on the bright side of life by choosing the wide range of Savenda electric lighting solutions that are available in all leading stores and supermarkets countrywide. For orders, call 0962-642-490 or email jnbunda@savenda.com or pchabula@savenda.com.
Your skin is the biggest muscle in your body. That's why we make sure that Oracle is #1 when it comes to taking care of your precious skin. Oracle Pure Petroleum Jelly and Glycerin soothes, moisturizes and keeps your skin perfect. Oracle Pure Petroleum Products for that perfect skin.
A falcon, known for flying high speeds, unmistakably grace and flying incredible long distances. Falcon Express is equal to the task with your deliveries. Friendly and reliable, a company that cares for you, local and international coverage, company that empowers its customers on time, every time, all the time. Nationwide delivery.
Send your parcel through Falcon Express to Mongu, Kabwe, Ndola, Kapiri, Kitwe, Chingola, Chipata, Livingstone, Mazabuka, Kasama, Solwezi, Kalumbila, Chililabombwe, Luansha, Kalulushi. Get in touch with us on +260 971 130 766 and drop your parcels at Falcon Express. Falcon Express. Your parcels are safe with us. Good news, good news. The rains have started. You need to plan your future. Generation wealth is the way to go. Has grafted avocado plants fruiting within 2 to 3 years for sale at only 90 kwacha each, and ordinary avocados at only 45 kwacha each. Contact us on 0979 753010 or 0962 965 883. We are open from 8 hours to 17 hours, Monday to Friday, at Healing Word Ministries International in Ibex Hill, opposite Hilltop Hospital.
Welcome back. We continue with the news. Bank of Zambia Governor Dr. Deni Kalialia has attributed the depreciation of the kwacha to a slowdown in the demand for copper on the international market, adding that copper production has equally reduced in the country. The governor also says the depreciation of the local currency is as a result of high demand for imports due to the festive season, which has been putting pressure on the local currency, coupled with a high demand for energy. He says where demand is higher than supply, it puts pressure on the local currency, more especially if the country is export dependent. And Dr. Kalialia says the debt restructuring process has taken longer than anticipated, which has seen potential investors hold on to their resources.
Developments in the global economy are such that demand for commodities such as copper has lessened, which has resulted in lower price of copper. But for us also here, production hasn't been rising as expected. So with the reduced prices, obviously the uptake from the proceeds of the exports is also come down. Meanwhile, this is the time of the year when there is demand for inputs for the upcoming season, and also the price of fuel has gone up, so demand for energy has gone up as well. So whereas demand has remained strong and the rising supply has come down.
Citizens First Party President Harry Kalaba has condemned the arrest of its party's Luansha District Chairman Lakson Kapampa by police officers in Luansha for the offense of unlawful assembly. Mr. Kalaba says the United Party for National Development does not respect the freedom of assembly and association, arresting anyone who seems to be a threat to the party. The Citizens First Party president says his party is new and needs to form structures, adding that many Zambians are now regretting having voted the UPND in office. Friday, 9th November 2022, police in Luanshya at Ron Antelope Police Station arrested and detained Citizens First Party Luanshya District Chairman Lacson Kapampa for unlawful assembly.
We are suffering under this government, and we don't respect the freedom of association. They don't respect the freedom of movement. A political party that is genuinely and legitimately registered has got the right to mobilize. CFP is a new political party. How will Citizens First be known by people if members sit in their homes like pumpkins? Now, when they start going in their homes, they're not having a rally. It's at a home of a chairman, a district chairman. You follow them in their homes that, no, how can you be having defectors? What kind of thing is that? So this government, this new Dawn government of yours, is not helping the Zambian people. We are regressing. We have now gone to the pre-colonial days, where we need to inform them whatever small things we're doing, you have to go and tell them. Our mobilization in our homes, our door-to-door mobilization, we can't be going to the police to tell them that we are here. So we are still suffering in this country.
We'll take our second and final break. We'll be back with international and sports news.
You know I can take her a bit.
Yes, my dear.
I was thinking of getting you a Bugatti on your birthday.
Really?
I'm quiet. My name is Yana.
Don't worry, my dear. That's why there is insurance.
Insurance?
You heard me.
Not just any kind of insurance, but Savenda General Insurance, a company that offers superior customer service, highly professional and dedicated staff. We are not just any insurance company, but an insurance company that actually pays our claims. We cover, among others, fire, marine, aviation, engineering, agriculture, motor vehicle, and miscellaneous insurance. So, live life to the full, knowing that Savenda General Insurance has got you covered. Savenda General Insurance. Insurance excellence.
A falcon, known for flying high speeds, unmistakably grace and flying incredible long distances. Falcon Express is equal to the task with your deliveries. Friendly and reliable, a company that cares for you, local and international coverage, company that empowers its customers on time, every time, all the time. Nationwide delivery.
Send your parcel through Falcon Express to Mongu, Kabwe, Ndola, Kapiri, Kitwe, Chingola, Chipata, Livingstone, Mazabuka, Kasama, Solwezi, Kalumbila, Chililabombwe, Luanshya, Kalulushi. Get in touch with us on +260 971 130 766 and drop your parcels at Falcon Express. Falcon Express. Your parcels are safe with us.
And now in international news, after fleeing the Kishishe massacre in the Democratic Republic of Congo's volatile east, the survivors recount how they fled to Kitsanga, to a displaced people's camp which has been home to many displaced people for over 20 years. The survivors say they saw horrors in their village of Kishishe, fled and walked in fear and cold for dozens of kilometers to escape the M23 rebels who are backed by Rwanda, according to the UN. For more in international news, here's a roundup.
Many of the survivors of the Kishishe massacre are now having to eke out a living in this displaced people's camp. Over 130 people were killed, and the survivors still fear the M23 rebel group, whom the UN says is backed by neighbouring Rwanda. We believe that this war will be between the army and the M23, but when the M23, which was sent by Kagame, arrived in Kishishe, they killed civilians, and that scares us, because they want to take our land. Camp Ngote has sheltered people displaced by fighting in North Kivu for years, but the latest influx from Kishishe is putting great pressure on its meagre resources. According to the UN, 390,000 people have fled their homes because of the latest outbreak of violence.
In
the camp, we live in difficult conditions. People are dying of hunger, and we're accommodated in small houses. Families of 5 to 6 people, children and their parents all together. They don't have anywhere to go. The congregation in the Pentecostal church at the camp fled the area around Rutshuru town where the M23 uprising began. Eastern Congo has been ravaged by violence for many years, mainly because it's rich in raw minerals. France's foreign minister has visited Ivory Coast for talks on security and trade with President Alassane Ouattara and his government. Speaking in the economic capital Abidjan on Friday, Catherine Colonna said France will remain at the side of its former French colony in all areas. Around 900 French soldiers are stationed in Ivory Coast, and France remains one of its biggest investors.
La France croit dans le potentiel de la Côte d'Ivoire.
France believes in the potential of Ivory Coast. It's ready, willing and has shown it to accompany its progress, especially through the programme that's worked very well and continues. The famous contract of debt reduction and development that allows us to be the first foreign investor in Ivory Coast with good results.
En Côte d'Ivoire avec de bons résultats.
Colonna also met with her Ivorian counterpart Candia Camara, who told her she was concerned about what she called terrorists crossing over from neighbouring Mali and Burkina Faso. Both countries are struggling to defeat violent Islamic insurgencies.
We now have some sports news. In sports news tonight, the Football Association of Zambia, FAZ, has congratulated the Zambia Under-17 men's national team for qualifying to the Total Energies Africa Cup of Nations Algeria 2023. FAZ President Andrew Kamanga has also congratulated the Under-17 women for qualifying for the third consecutive final of the COSAFA Championship. The Under-17 girls are the defending champions of the COSAFA crown that they won last year in Maseru. Kamanga says the Under-17 boys joined their Under-20 counterparts for qualifying for the Africa Cup of Nations, which is a great milestone for the development of the Zambian game. Kamanga says the success of the junior teams will eventually lead to successful senior teams. Both the Under-17 boys and girls will play South Africa on Sunday in the final of the COSAFA Cup. Zambia and South Africa have qualified for the Total Energies Africa Cup of Nations Algeria 2023. And still in football news, Morocco has made history as the first African country to reach the World Cup semi-final stage at the ongoing 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar. Morocco beat one of the tournament's favorites, Portugal, by 1-0 to emerge victorious. Yusuf N. Nasseri had scored the only goal for Morocco in the dying minutes of the first half of the quarter-final match at Al Tumama Stadium. That sporting note brings Camnet television news to an end, but before we go, the headlines once again. Law enforcement agencies raid LUSAKA'S CHIBOLYA compound. Stakeholders charge that councils are incapable of managing CDF resources. The Teaching Service Commission warns indisciplined, politically inclined teachers. And in international news, DR Congo massacre survivors eke out a living in IDP camp. In sports news, Morocco beats Portugal to progress to the World Cup semi-finals. Our Camnet verse of the day is coming from Deuteronomy 18, verse 15. The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like Moses from among your own brothers. You must listen to him. Thank you once again for watching Camnet Television News. My name is Jeffrey Siambo. Good night.